Roll call.
Matt Elliott,
Present.
Jon Draper,
Here.
Tal Rancourt, Pam Brewer,
Here.
Jack Comley,
Here.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to consent, to approve the agenda and the minutes from January 7th?
So moved.
That's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by,
Who did the first?
he moved the motion, Pam
John, can you
seconded it.
speak into the mic a little bit better?
Sure.
Please.
Is that better?
So John did the first.
Got it?
So moved.
John moved it, Pam seconded it. Poll the board.
Jon Draper,
Aye.
Pam Brewer, Matt Elliott,
Aye.
and Jack Comley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, public comments. We have a request to speak here from Mr. Brandon Cooper. If you would, you have the mic. Please speak into the mic. We're on video and want everybody to be able to hear too.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Copper. I'm with Davidson Engineering, a civil engineering firm based out of Naples, Florida. We've been up here for about the last 3 years doing work throughout Highlands County, mostly in City of Sebring and Spring Lake Improvement District. I would like to take this opportunity to discuss with you the Caladium Estates mobile home project, which is on your agenda to be heard. I wasn't quite sure if you wanted me to dive into the details at this point in time, or if you would like staff to bring up this topic as it is in the agenda.
What do y'all wish? You have a preference?
What's best for him?
What's best for you?
Would staff mind summarizing it first, and then I can kind of fill in
Okay.
the gaps as we go?
Okay, then we should stick to the agenda.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, then we should stick to it as an agenda item then.
Sounds good to me.
Do you know where that is, Pam?
I didn't see it on the agenda.
It's actually part of Agenda Item B.
Item 8?
Item B, Service Territory and Line Extensions. So if you want to, just I'll interject.
Yes.
We'd like to pull.
Item B. Okay.
Yeah.
We're taking out A though, right?
We're going
Or
to
the
pull
B?
item A. Yes, we'd like to pull item A. We're going to bring
Yeah.
that back up in the future.
Yep, item A, we're not going to discuss today. That's going to come up later, so you can do B or C.
So item B, and that's so we'll start on that. That's a Service Territory Line Extension. So we're bringing this up. We have been in discussions with Mr. Copper for a while, close to, 8 months to a year. And we're at the point we really need to decide and recommendations from the Utility Council on what they want to do and where we want to serve. We have a regional utility and we serve obviously well beyond our service boundaries. The 290-unit mobile home park is actually outside of the Lake Placid Regional Plan. We go down to 70. We cross 70 for at the traffic signal on 27 for a little bit. So we do have some service area on the other side of 70, but their mobile home park is going to be just on the other side of State Road 70. So I thought it was important to get a recommendation from you and approval from you and the council on both water and wastewater and where we serve and how we serve those areas. So that's kind of we have capacity at our water plant. We will have capacity. We were tying that capacity allocation, but I think regardless of whatever the capacity allocation is, we would probably have capacity for the mobile home park if our discussions have been limited to water for the most part because we currently don't have capacity for them at our wastewater plant, but we're under construction. So most of our discussions have been for the water line extension. And it tied into what we were looking at doing with the greater sewer project and the line extensions along South Lake Placid. Although all of that has gotten pushed way off, and you'll see in part of the next discussion on the grant priority recommendations as to where those projects fall and what the priority should be. So, but anyway, but we have over the course, not just for the 290 unit mobile home park, that's the first line of this. And then we have another gentleman here on Tioga Line that would like a line extension. And the utility has had some differences of how they handle some of these line extensions. The last two that I've been involved in that started actually prior to me arriving here were one on South Lake Huntley by an individual that wanted to build a home, and then a developer on Peachtree that was going to build 6 townhomes. In both of those instances, the developer was required to pay 100% of the costs. So anyway, so we have a two-part discussion, but first I wanted to focus on the 290-unit mobile home park, so we get a recommendation on how you felt about servicing that, even though it's across the street from our Lake Placid Regional Utilities service area, or not even our service area, the Lake Placid area plan. So it's a very gray area. Nobody serves it. There's no contention, I think, about somebody else serving it. I think their only other options is put in their own package plants, water and wastewater. So with that, the applicants, or I say applicant, the developer, I think, is here. So we'll let him make his case or talk to you about your opinions.
Thank you. And you are?
My name's Kevin McCarthy. I'm project manager for the town.
Nice to meet you, Kevin. Thank
Yes.
you. So just to clear up a few things, I think in our previous discussions with staff, the mobile home park actually kind of grew in size a little bit. And I think from your perspective, that could kind of mean more customers in the future. So right now, the concept plan that I presented to y'all has 382 units, in addition to a large clubhouse to serve as a disaster shelter in need be. We anticipate a wastewater demand of about 110,000 gallons per day, and then that translates to a water demand of, pardon me, about 154,000 gallons per day. We recognize that, again, we are outside of your typical service area, but in coordination with staff, we see that you are planning some utility improvements within the vicinity of our project, and we would intend to potentially grab those lines where they are currently planned to terminate and extend them down to our project. I see that Kevin outlined a couple recommendations here at the end of the summary on today's agenda. One of which should just be to move forward and say that, potentially we could provide utilities to this development. The second of which would be to deny it. I would like to implement a third option, if that's appropriate. And that would be a collaborative effort between the developer and the town to bring utilities to this area, potentially offer what they're calling a pioneering agreement, so that if anybody were to tie into this infrastructure that we pay for up front, that they would be able to recapture some of that investment back. And then we kind of talk about potential credits to impact fees, if there are any available, because they are paying for the initial infrastructure upgrades. That's about all I have for you. Oh, yes, sir.
Are you saying you would be proposing to extend the line from wherever our line is going to stop? You would pay for the rest?
Use your mic, please, Jack.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that you're proposing to extend the line from wherever our line will stop to across 70 to your location, or?
That is correct. That is an option. if it is an option for you. We're kind of balancing two balls here. We have the water side for potable water and then the wastewater side. So in coordination with staff prior to this, we saw some plans that you are planning a water main extension down to 2665 Placid View, which I believe is some sort of like church complex. So when we talk about a water main extension, that would be essentially grabbing that there and then bringing it down via Placid View Drive to our site, which is approximately 4.5 miles.
Okay, now, from what I understand, the line that we would be, the portion of the line that we would be installing would have to be increased in size to cover the demand that you're going to be putting on it? Is that?
We're anticipating a 8-inch line needed for our site, and that will cover all the potable water and fire for the site.
Okay.
So I'm unaware at this time about what size main you're planning in that area.
Kevin?
So that design is not anywhere near complete, so I can't answer that question as far as what that line is. That's the South Lake Placid piece that Johnson Engineering is working on, but they've been focusing on what we have funding for, which is the North Lake Placid, which is the federal earmark. So that line has not been, I mean, I'm sure they could run some rough estimates based on some of their pre-design study, but I do not know what that line size is projected to be today.
You're talking about sewerage, aren't you?
I'm talking about sewer, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about water.
Oh, you're talking about water. The water line to the Camp and Conference Center is a 10-inch line,
Okay.
and it stops right up here at the Camp and Conference Center. So they would have to run that line all the way up to that interconnect at Lake Mirror, next to the Camp and Conference Center.
Okay, so there would be no additional expense for us as far as the water end of it. We're already running a line that's a sufficient size to accommodate their needs.
Well, I don't know, I can't answer that question as to whether you would pick up. So there's a slight wrinkle in this area as far as water goes. Placid Lake serves from, they have 75 customers in the area of the Catholic Church. So I think it's in here, this area that Placid Lake serves. So we would have to take that section out of what our service plans were. So you're taking about half of that load off because Placid Lakes is already serving that piece of it. So what the remaining houses would be in that impact, I don't have that information. So
Okay, are you saying that might decrease the size of the line that we would need there?
it has a potential of, yes, you have a potential if they're building for fire flow. I don't know, again, I can't tell you line sizes based on that distance and pressure and what the impact of another 100 homes or 75 homes would be on that line, on that 8-inch line. So I don't know I can't tell you what that impact would be.
Okay, thank
So
you.
It's a possibility that it would have to be upsized, but I don't know that. We upsized the design to the Camp and Conference Center because we anticipated serving north and south. So we know the 10-inch line going north is sized for that, but we haven't done the modeling to see 382 plus what we had already planned for and how that would fall. I can't answer that question.
All right, thank you.
Is some of the problem fire suppression?
Say again?
Is some of the problem fire suppression or some consideration with the line size?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, so particularly for a mobile home park, because those tend to burn a little more readily than a stick-built home. Nobody might want to hear that, but 35 years on the volunteer fire department, I can tell you that's the reality. So anyway, but you want to have, if you're building a new subdivision, you want to have fire protection for those homes in that subdivision. So yes, it absolutely impacts everything that you do on the design. You're trying to meet NFPA standards.
And how far is that from 27? Didn't we talk about putting something there at the Bears Den? We talked about running water and sewer back that way.
They're, how far, they're between Placid View and,
27, I'm just estimating about 3 miles or so, if
Yeah.
it's that far.
You say there's more chance for development along 70 than there is between 70 and where the water stops,
yeah.
because the state owns most of that on both sides.
Yeah, you have Archibald, and you have on both sides, you have TIF property and Archibald. So there's going to be very little
That's true,
development
too.
running
Yeah.
back along that side where the other mobile home park's on the east side.
Mhm.
So any development would probably have to happen to the west if you were going to serve development along there. That's, again, this is a whole larger question on development and where you want service to
Mhm.
begin or end. Like I said, there are capacity issues and what actually get built and put in, it's still a question, but even, you know, we've been talking, and I hadn't really considered, I was like, started to look at it, I said, I better have council approval before we sign off on something. Normal developments,
Mhm.
you know, they're inside our service area. We do line extensions at different times and go out for some of those, but this is a little different animal. And we're trying to get some policies and procedures in place and what we're going to do and where we're going to do it. It would be no cost to the town other than we have the customers, the developer's going to pay for the line, but even the service area. So that's kind of where I wanted some guidance or some input from you to say, yes, you think it's a good idea.
So just to clarify, they would be running a line from the conference center all the way to their project, basically.
Correct.
Right? Even though there's Placid Utilities has a piece, we just lay it right beside that,
Yeah.
correct? We wouldn't have those
One
customers.
side of the road or the other side of the road,
Yep.
you'd be laying in the same, you're laying in county right of way.
But
And
from
you would
Jersey
pick up.
Street on would be the town?
Yeah, so
We get those
we
connections?
had plans before, again, I'm sure if Joe knew about those 75 customers, he would have said something early on in the planning process. We didn't know, I didn't know until 3 or 4 months ago. I think we talked about it at one of these meetings, but about those 75 customers. But we had plans to run, this is the sewer line plan to pick up all of the customers down to the end and run a water line for billing. So you have a water customer and it's for billing purposes. It makes it a lot easier along that same line. So you'd have potentially a line covering about half of that distance in our service territory, and then the other half is all state-owned land. So there's no more development that would happen between there and 70 on that line.
Well, south of that green line, there's development there all around that lake, back to the state,
Yeah, and up in,
south of the line. The bottom of the page, right?
yeah, this is the last set of houses.
Right.
Everything below that point belongs to the state.
Not
So that's-
everything. That's what I'm saying. Not right there where your cursor is. That's not the state's.
Oh, that's not state?
No, there's 3,000 foot of lakefront right there that's owned by an individual.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's still potential development there.
Right. As well as the other side that used to be Grove.
Right. Yeah, on the other side
That
of
may
the lake.
develop too. I'm just throwing that out there, that there is more.
You said this was outside of our planning area also? Sorry, everybody. You said this was outside of our planning area or
So there's a-
comprehensive?
Yeah, there's a Lake Placid regional plan that excludes Sun and Lakes, Leisure Lakes, Placid Lakes, Sylvan Shores, but our Lake Placid regional plan runs from 70 to a couple miles north of here. That's the Lake Placid regional plan.
On the north side of 70?
North side of 70, yes. We stop at 70 except at the, I think I just had that, hold on a second. Where did I have that? Was that here? That's this map.
It's up on the top.
Do you have it somewhere? Let's see here. It says Lake View. Let's see what pops up. I think I can pull it up. Maybe not. No, that's not it. You have the regional plan? So the regional plan?
It's one, you had it up a second ago.
I thought I did.
It's on our website.
What I'm getting at is the Florida Administrative Code has a whole host of things that have to be satisfied if you go outside your existing territory. And if it's not included in the comprehensive plan, you have to redo the comprehensive plan.
So the interesting part about our service area for regional, for a utility standpoint, is there's nothing designated outside of what we currently serve. So there's Lake Placid Regional Plan that addresses development but not necessarily utilities in water and wastewater. So I say the intent, and I'm making an assumption, but the intent for most of that in utilities is what we're going through today between Sebring, Avon Park, the county, and us, Spring Lake, in the inter-service boundaries agreements. Avon Park and Sebring are butting up against each other on utilities, so they're trying to make a determination of who's going to serve where. We're not anywhere close to another utility that's serving those areas other than Placid Lakes in that area for water. So it's a little bit odd. We have extended, and we haven't, I don't think we've, unless I'm missing it, and I haven't read all of the comp plan, so, but we don't have plans to serve the entire Lake Placid Regional Plan at this time. There's nowhere that we say we're extending, and we have a service area for that.
No, I wasn't getting at that. But if we go, as I understand, our area is on the north side of 70, and our planning stops at the north side of 70, right?
Our planning area stops at the north side of 70. Our service area doesn't go beyond where we currently serve.
Okay,
So-
so then according to the Florida Administrative Code, you're going to have to go do a lot of things when you go outside of your service area.
Well, that'll have to happen for the North Lake Placid area that we have the federal earmark for.
And then to add to the difficulty, if it's outside of your comprehensive plan, you have to redo your comprehensive plan also.
Yeah.
That was, it's, I want to check, it's 25-30.036.
So, and the comp plan's going to get redone in 2027. So, I think it's 2027. I think we're 2 years, yes, 2 years out. County's working on theirs now. They're in the middle of their update, and ours is due in 27, just so you know for dates.
Yeah, but so basically a heads up that you realize what hoops you have to jump through to do this.
So this is the bottom end of our the planning area, not our service area. That's a very big distinction, because we have no plans at all to do any, serve anybody with water and sewer down here in these plans. That's State Road 70, Placid View. So this green is our service, is the Lake Placid Regional Plan. And the
Okay.
brown here is our town limits.
Okay, so then the green is, then south of 70, pull it back up again, is inside the planning area, or what?
No, this is State Road 70 here.
Yeah,
We go across it in this section,
uh-huh.
which is beyond, next to the railroad tracks, but that's not where that's not where the proposed mobile home park is. The proposed mobile home park is
Oh, it's over there, okay,
back over here.
okay.
It's a mile east of Placid View Drive.
One other question too, for the gentleman here. when do you expect to need water or water and sewer for this development?
It's difficult to say at this time. I would say more or less at this point in time, we would just need to know whether or not y'all are open to negotiations on whether or not we can do this. Because on the opposite side of that coin is, if we have to implement on-site water and wastewater treatment systems, it's obviously going to impact our site a good bit. We'll have to start making accommodations for those. And this past summer, Highlands County passed new regulations as it pertains to mobile home parks. So things like on-site water and wastewater treatment systems aren't guaranteed by right anymore. We have to go back to them and request a special exception. So we just need to know whether or not you're willing to hear us out, try to work with us a little bit on some of these items in terms of like us going up there, grabbing them, whether or not we need to get an attorney involved to figure out if we need to determine if there's going to be a pioneering agreement. Obviously, it's in our best interest to get water and wastewater facilities to our development. Package systems are, for lack of a better word, a maintenance nightmare. We have to make acres of updates for these types of systems on our current plan. So to say that it's like fiscally in our best interest to make this work is an understatement. So just know that we are willing to, you know, do what we need to do in order to get these things implemented. But we just need you guys to agree to that is a potential option. Otherwise, I got to hit the drawing board.
What's your time frame for in-service?
That's what I just asked.
It's difficult to say at this time. It could be, I'll probably be in a years of permitting or so, you know, like 12 to 15 months of permitting. And then let's say they break ground right after I get permits. Probably going to take them another 2-3 years to construct this thing. So I would say 4 years out.
Thank you.
My understanding is that as of right now, we don't have any money to do any of our portion of it. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're not, yes, we have no plans, I say plans, we have
Yeah.
no funding
Okay.
to do any portion of ours.
Okay, that's why I was asking, you know, did you want to start construction a year from now or, 3 years from now or something like that? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm for negotiating. Go for it. Take a look at it.
You mentioned you would like a portion of the money spent as people hooked up to it, right? Do you know what you're
If
looking
it's a
for there?
possibility.
A what?
If it's a possibility.
Okay.
Because y'all charge impact fees, right?
We don't
No
charge,
impact fees.
we charge development fees, so if you,
Similar?
similar to an impact fee, yes.
So from my understanding, part of those fees go to the infrastructure that was needed to serve the facility, then the other part goes to capacity at the plant, whether it be water or wastewater treatment. Is that correct?
That's not the way the ordinance is written.
No?
I believe the ordinance is written, developer pays for all costs, and then you're paying for plant capacity expansion.
So it's strictly plant capacity?
Yep.
Okay. So what I was alluding to was potentially, let's say we pay for all these infrastructure upgrades and then somebody on that residential house directly adjacent to us wants to tie into it in the future, then we would like the idea or the ability to recapture some of that infrastructure cost that was directly in front of them, paid for by the private developer. Again, if it's not an option whatsoever, just let us know so that we know that it's not going to happen.
Well, it's not how electricity works, usually. If you put 2 miles in and I come in right beside you, I get it free, you know?
Everybody's a
but-
little bit different, so
Sure.
we're just working
So
on
what would
basics.
that look like? What would you want all the development fee that would be based on, so how are you going to base this fee, I guess?
Well, development fees are already in the code, so
Okay.
what we charge, and I don't know, they're approximately $3,000 per household,
Right,
so, is what's existing in the development
right.
fees.
And would that be applicable, since that's not in the jurisdiction of the ordinances.
If we're going to serve, that's what they're going to pay. It's a development fee. So if they pay, they're going to pay for connection. They'll pay for the meter. There's a set of fees in there, but they'll pay for setting the meter, and the development charges. And they'd have to pay for each one of those. Every connection pays that. And it's based on meter size. So if they have, depending on how they went, if they did a master meter and served the whole facility off of 1 meter, that's a 6-inch meter, then they're going to pay $30,000 or $40,000. If they do individually, they're selling the lots individually, and if everyone has its own meter, then they're paying the $3,000. So it's based on meter size as to what they pay, but it's all set in code. So they could negotiate, and again, I think it's all going to come back to you and the council as a negotiation would move through. For that final agreement, they're going to have to have an agreement approval process. So that would have to come back. That would come back to you.
Where it where Placid Lake's line runs there, I guess it ends there at Jersey, I believe. Would there be a tie-in there with a valve for emergencies or whatever, like we do for a hurricane, just to keep the water rolling and flowing?
That would be an option for. We have an interconnect with Placid Lakes now that may give them an option for a second
Just like a back
interconnect. It's gone back and forth. We used it when we did the big shutdown so we could keep Lake June Point actually fed. So we used part of that. And they've used ours when they had the big house fire not long ago. We opened up the interconnect to provide them additional water. So that goes back and forth. It's an interconnect between the two for emergency purposes. It would benefit, I think, both systems if they had an interconnect, but that's just an agreement between the two systems if they wanted to do an interconnect. So, I mean, that's an option.
Or if you had to work on the other side and block it off for some reason, you could backfeed it the other way, you know.
So, yeah,
You're right there anyway, you know, so. All right. Did you have a question, Pam? Okay. Can you speak loud? Or, that's fine. Let her speak a moment.
Pam Pinterest, just a resident. Just a couple of comments. So to let you know, I spoke in favor of this zoning request change at the county level. So I'm not against this project per se. Having said that and attended a lot of these meetings, I would think it'd be important, are they going to annex in if you extend this line or not? The current line that you're talking about, the water line to the Camping Conference Center, isn't online. There's a grant involved, and maybe summer of 2025 it's supposed to be up and running. I'm looking to Kevin. It's probably been delayed.
Probably the end of 2025.
The end of 2025 is the water line. So can somebody just hook into that water line, or is that really the Camping Conference Center's water line? I don't know. I'm just stating that. So a while ago you're talking about, I think you were saying y'all would pay from the mobile home park to the connection at the Camping Conference Center, or would that be to where the projected service line is? Do you understand what my question is?
Right now, their design or our talk was that they would have to connect where the Camping Conference Center is, because we have no plans or funding for our portion, that extension. So we can't make any commitment to that, so theirs would be all the way to the Camping Conference Center.
That may be a good thing. The town has done pioneering agreements in the past. It did one with the Camping Conference Center. It made it through 7 contract rewrites, amendments to the original contract. The last one, or the one before that pioneer agreement, was pulled out. You've done one towards the assisted living facility.
Bedrock.
Is that what it is?
It's Bedrock at Southern Living.
So, I mean, it's not unheard of. Just with you, impact fees, we don't have them currently. The county's undergoing a study. So within a year, I think there'll be impact fees in the county, and y'all will have to abide by that. I would say realistically, that's not a priority area for the town, even if you were to look. I mean, if you're talking 2 to 4 years, I think if you're looking 10 to 15 years, it might be, but not like in this short time span. LPA, the local planning agency that we're supposed to meet yesterday, they're trying to have a natural gas line go from State Road 70 up to Town Hall area. They kind of think that that's the industrial area, and the things why it hadn't developed in the past because it doesn't have water and sewer. And for years, we've been talking about trying to get water and sewer down State Road 27 and 70. And in the past, Joey was always looking for a landowner to partner with to be able to donate the land. Then the town could start the process of trying to get grants for water or sewer. So maybe, I don't know what your plans are, but maybe that's an option that they fit into it, and then through this pioneering agreement, you get water and sewer to the east of them. I still go to the county commission meetings, and I still try to get them to go back into the utility business, because Sebring, Avon Park, other areas of our county, they understand the importance of sewer and utilities. Lake Placid has that Lake Placid Regional Plan, which is a massive amount of land, but your service area, even over the next 10 or whatever years, is a very small area. It has potential, but I just don't, well, that's up to y'all. But just for like a couple of questions, but this might be an opportunity if somebody's willing to pay for the line. And just like with Grand Isles that got approved by the town council a couple of months ago, they had agreed to a 4-inch sewer line hooking up to the town line, or if the town line was going that way, they would pay for it. So this may be an opportunity if you have somebody willing to pay for the, I'm more concerned with central sewer than central water, but if somehow to open up that area, perhaps something could be done. Perhaps not. Thank you.
Is Camp and Conference Center looking for infrastructure fee payback as people hook between here and there?
They have on the wastewater side a pioneering agreement, so they do have the ability to recoup some of their costs.
Okay.
That's a discussion that will be for the water side of it.
That's between them and the plant, not from them forward, right?
Right, from their
We're
line
talking
to
about
the
two
plant.
things. Okay.
Yes. So they have a sunsets in 5 years from the date. So, but they do have that pioneering agreement in place.
Okay. But nothing beyond it, right?
No.
Okay, so, good for you.
No, I would, as you say that, I would say a tap is a tap.
Right,
So-
right, yep,
Doesn't matter whether you're, which
Okay.
way your direction running,
Gotcha.
a tap is a tap. So there would be there is that is a part of the negotiation and what that looks like. So,
I just don't see going around and about. If you're gonna run it down 27 to 70 and go over. It'd save them some money and it would save you all money.
I guess what I'm looking for is a recommendation, because it's going to go to council for Monday night. Do you want us, from a LPRUAC, should we?
I think you need to find out what the future use is going to be. Are you going to want to add Parkland Drive and all that stuff to it later on, go the other way off of 70? Is 10 inches going to be enough?
Do we want to move our service territory?
Right, do we want to leave our service territory? And do we need to go with a larger line, to accommodate that kind of stuff?
So we
I
can
mean, I
come
hate
back.
to overbuild, but you surely hate to underbuild too,
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk of development south of 70 too.
Or maybe a water tower down there and fill it from here, something like that, so.
The old Georgia Pacific Water Tower was brought up before.
It's actually uses water tower, I think. I think the water tower belongs to the fertilizer plant, but I may be wrong. I think it's on there. But anyway, yes, there's a water tower down there. And the development that you're talking about supposedly has been approved is the golf course that's a couple miles south of 70, I believe,
Yes.
that they're looking to put in the golf course development in there. That's the total extent of what I know about the golf course development. So, anyway, If you want, we can try and get you some more information. I don't know specifically, you know, I guess that would be part of the planning effort. If you want us to continue or look at planning it, that would be the question. If you say yes, go ahead and continue to look at it. Or if you said, no, we don't even think it's a good idea. That's kind of, I'm looking for that recommendation. Do we move forward and look at it? Do we try and get you more information and bring it back? I'm not sure. It's hard to judge what, you know, my crystal ball is not any better than anybody else's. If it was, I wouldn't be working for government. But what's going to happen down 70 in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't know. I mean, other than there's another gas station going in there relatively quickly.
My take on it would be to continue to look into it and check out all the possibilities and not miss an opportunity, because it's also an opportunity to make money on selling water. So I don't, my thoughts are we ought to just go ahead and keep going. Do you need a motion, or?
I'd prefer a motion.
In the interest of saving the lake, or helping the lake and the sewer line around the lake, I think it's better than going down 27, but as Pam said, I think we need to get something going at the Bears Den down there, even if it's not connected, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't make a recommendation as to what we do. I would just make a recommendation that we continue to negotiate and look at all the options, and then come back to us and give us some ideas, both annexation, in making our service plan larger, putting them inside our plan, if that's what's appropriate. I don't know, but I would tend to say we need to continue on negotiating. If you can form that into a motion.
Well, I would say you just continue with the planning and you leave out the implementation of serving the development. I'd say utility move forward with planning and serving the mobile home, and planning to serve the mobile home development and expanding the service territory and what would be involved. And I mean, so I guess that's, so you want to continue planning it. We're not going to try and implement it, but we're going to plan it and then come back with additional recommendations.
Yep.
Is that clear as mud?
I will make that motion.
Let me do that again. All right, I'll try it better. Move to recommend to the town council that utility move forward with planning.
Hold on, move forward.
Well, I'm writing it down, so. Forward with the planning to serve the mobile home development on State Road 70 and come back with LPRUAC with recommendations.
Okay, but before we get a second, is a mobile home park allowed in our service area? I don't think it is.
It is not allowed in our service territory.
Right.
This is immediately outside. Let's back up. It's not allowed in our planning area. We're talking about two separate things. The planning area has to do with land development. Our utility is a separate entity, and our service area is separate from the planning area.
Okay.
Our service area right now is only where we serve our lines. There's nothing dedicated to that other than municipal limits. We can control our municipal limits and say these are our municipal limits and nobody can come in. If it's outside our municipal limits, and if Placid Lakes wanted to serve around the rest of Lake Placid tomorrow, they have that ability. Mm-hmm. Right now it's first come, first serve. No, you got to go through a PSC. But I don't have any right to it. You don't have any right to it unless somebody serves it. Yes, you've got to go through the PSC process, Placid Lakes would, but there's nothing that reserves that for the town as it stands today. So it has nothing to do with the planning area. Our service area and planning area are two separate things. It's just that when they designed that planning area, they did that 10 plus years ago. That's where they said we wanted to control that growth, and they excluded those other areas because they're already platted. They're designed and platted. Placid Lakes, Leisure Lakes, Sun and Lakes, Sylvan Shores. Those are already platted developments. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to decide densities and uses of those properties. They're already done. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'd like to have the motion restated, or need a second for John's motion. Is it going to fail for lack of a second? We need a motion for the to recommend, so. No motion, no second? Okay. I guess we need to poll the board, or can I just say it fails for lack of a second? There's no vote,
Fails for
so,
lack of a
yeah.
second.
Okay.
I would say, is there an alternative motion?
Yeah, is there
or
an
do I-
alternative motion? Someone like to come up with something a little,
If not, then we'll just, it's on the town council, it'll be on the town council to, just move forward without a recommendation from LPRUAC.
I
Okay.
say we move forward with investigating the cheapest way to put the water down there. Going all the way around and coming back is not the way to go. It's not. It's just, I won't say it. I think that we should move forward, looking towards moving it down 27 to 70,
70.
turn right and go to his, and that's it.
is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Jack seconds it. You poll the board. Could you restate the motion? Whoever wrote that down, just so we're clear on it.
Moving forward to run the line along 27 to 70 and to go to the development.
So we're telling them how we want it done, not,
Planning.
not
yeah.
exploring options, right? Okay.
Exploring options. And exploring, is that
Yes, that's good.
exploring options? Now you can go ahead.
Yes, exploring that.
And exploring the options.
Exploring options, okay, so it could go the other way. Okay? Just so we're clear on the motion.
Jon Draper,
Aye.
Pam Brewer,
Aye.
Matt Elliott,
Aye.
Jack Comley,
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next project for line extensions is a lot closer to home. If this pulls in streets, hold on. I thought I had a map. So this is not a developer, this is two private homeowners that live basically at the end of Tioga Lane off of Lake June Road. And that person would like to tie it into the town water system. Again, I started to iterate, the last two instances that we've had of these extensions where the homeowner paid for one was a homeowner that paid for a 6-inch line extension, including hydrants, along South Lake Huntley. And then the other one was a developer that paid for a line extension. So he has done some homework in discussions about running just an individual service that is from our line runs along Lake June Road. That my mouse was running away. So his proposal was to run. He has 3 proposals anyway. He was running 1.5 inches all the way down to his two houses. The issue we have is you're now running past a number of other houses. So how do they connect, or can they connect? What kind of fire service do you have? And our proposal was, and that's part of the proposal, was to run a 6-inch line to the intersection of Blackfoot, and then you would have the service line just running down to those houses, so that you do provide fire service into that area. And then what does that look like? So that's, I kind of laid out 4 options. I believe he is here. Yes, Dan's here. So he may want to have some comments on that. But I was looking for direction on what you felt the utility should be, our policy, because we don't have it in a policy. We have developers in a policy. The developer will pay 100% of the cost of running the lines. This is a homeowner. So in the case along South Lake Huntley, which was actually getting built when I first came here, they just treated that homeowner like a developer, and he had to put in a 6-inch line, gave the ability for everybody else to tie in after that. And but we want some direction so we can develop the policy and kind of make it black and white moving forward, and how we develop line extensions and what that looks like. We have a world of areas. We are designing line extensions for everywhere that we are planning on expanding our sewer lines, including a piece of Lake June Road that is not on town water. There's a piece in the middle section from the highway past Bishop Park that does not have town water. There's a piece on South Lake Huntley and Mirror Drive. There's the pieces along the lake to Lake Placid. So those are kind of the what we're looking for some direction on developing this policy and what that would look like. So I would give you that to look at, and I guess the homeowner's here to talk about it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is William Clone. I reside at 37 Tioga Lane and have a neighbor. I can't remember his exact address. We have been interested in improving the water quality for our 2 homes over the past, I think, year and a half. We've been talking with the folks in the utility department. And as a taxpayer, you know, in a perfect world, the municipality would pay for our municipal water and roads to our driveway, et cetera. In this case, we have offered to pay about $39,000 to run a 1.5-inch line. To my knowledge, a 1.5-inch line does not require a permit to tie into the main line on Lake June Road. The utility staff asked that we have engage a site utility contractor to do some studies for us. So there were 3 options. Option 1 was the line that we need to serve the 2 houses, which is the 1.5-inch line. My recollection is that's about $39,000. The second option was in the $90,000 range. And then there was a third option with 6-inch line going to an 8-inch line and full hydrants and so on and so forth. In my discussions with the utility department, they said, you know, if you run your 1.5-inch line, in years to come, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we may pass right by your lines. And I don't want to wait that long. I'm 70 years old. I would like to run the 1.5-inch line now and just have the water that we need and deserve. If the town would like to accept that same sum of money, $39,000 or $40,000, to contribute to its upsizing, I mean, I'm all for that too. I'd like to just get going on it because we've been working on it so long. We have maps that we have given to the utility department. I've got it on my computer. Do any of you guys, did you bring those maps today, or is it?
I do not have the maps. So,
okay,
sorry.
If you'd like to see it, I can grab my laptop and walk by the front of each of you.
I can pull it, I think I can pull you, I'll pull the property up.
The entire distance.
The red circle is the 2 properties which are requesting this today.
How
The blue lines represent the runs.
It's a line, did you hear him say?
How many feet would this line be?
It says on the drawing. Do you remember, Brandon?
It's right here. It's your,
We don't have the drawing. That's the inch and a half
it's
line.
about 700 feet.
Okay. So this is the proposed route you're drawing there?
Yeah, that's,
760,
those are the
36.
properties that we're talking about. So as you see that line, so 730 feet, or pretty close to it.
And the people at Chickasaw, are they on water? Over there, in that cul-de-sac?
Down here?
Yes.
No, we don't have water lines anywhere in here.
Anywhere in there, okay.
So it's just, the only line we have is the one that runs along Lake June Road. So he would be tying in, and it's on the lake side of the road. So he'd be tying in there, directional bore under the road, and then either directional or open cut, depending on what method you're in the county right away to get down to that line.
And the one outlined in blue is my home, and it would be the one to the right, which is the neighbor's house.
And what about the next guy over? What if he wants to hook up?
He's welcome to join in.
Okay, and the next guy?
Oh, no.
The problem is, once you run that inch and a half, then the only options for this one, this one, this one, this one,
Right.
is to run another inch and a half and another inch and a half and another inch and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to feed those two, and then if you have a third one tie in, he paid for that line, but he's going to lose his water pressure.
Mhm.
So that's where you run into
That's
the issues there on those services when you have, if you have other people tying into that line.
And the line on Lake June Road is how big?
Do you remember, Dennis, how big the line is on Lake June? 12 inch.
Oh, okay.
When we run a water line, you know, the full cost, we prorate it to every lot that it can serve. And then, you know, everybody on that line pays the same amount. And we collect it and we give it back to the person that ran the water line. And for 10 years, you have to keep records of it. And if somebody comes in, you collect it and you give it back to the person that paid for the water line. After 10 years, it's
So, yes, you're basically treating it kind of like a pioneering agreement. Our difficulty here is we have no, to my knowledge, it's outside of town limits. So requiring hookups, I don't think we have any ability to require hookups, unlike Placid Lakes where you're running the line. I think you can do those assessments as part of your,
well, the county will,
we have to develop that interlocal agreement with the county. We do not have one in place, to my knowledge. It's not covered in our agreement that created the regional utility. It's a cooperative agreement. It addresses that at some point we'll create the interlocal agreement. Everything we've done when we took over the county water lines, anybody that hooks up, it's all voluntary as far as hookups go. There's no mandate on any of that. And so if the line goes by, we don't make assessments. There's nothing on that piece of it that has gone as far as our policy goes. That's why we need to develop maybe something like you have that's in policy, which will then become part of the interlocal. The interlocal agreement discussion with the county has to happen fairly soon because we expect the federal earmark to be coming in the next few months and starting that process. So we have to start the interlocal agreement on how we're going to enforce water and wastewater services outside of our municipal boundaries.
We'd run a 1.5 inch line. We'd run a 3 inch and then charge them for the hookups.
And it's not an assessment, it's just that he gets a bonus when somebody hooks on.
Mhm. So why aren't we looking at a grant and doing this whole area here? I mean, there's a lot of lakes involved there.
We are designing, we're designing, so let's go back for a second, but we're designing wastewater stops. Oops, went way too far. Even the original design on wastewater stops back here. It doesn't run all the way down Lake June. So the plan for water comes out of Tomoka. That water line's been there. That was there part of the county when the town took over that 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So that line was run by the county.
Mm-hmm.
We have plans. That's when we've started the design. We're paying for the design for a number of those areas. But and that will be an SRF loan, so it'll be a combination of grant loan for that, is the way you typically fund water lines. So, but this one has come up for discussion. We haven't had any discussion. We have a world of areas that we could serve. We're looking at that little piece when you have all of that. So we have a lot of areas that we could serve with water.
Sure.
It's just a matter of which one you get to first and priorities and where you go. So I don't.
And I know a lot of those are very old homes that have probably failing septics, and they're right on the lake.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we need to start another project. I would like to tighten up some of these projects and get them done. But
Well, that's.
on the other hand, I don't want to put good money after bad by just running, a small line when it should have been a 6-inch. You can run a hydrant onto the other end and do the whole area and do it with a grant, so it's not costing him all this much,
Yeah, the grant before we're prepared to go out for it is number one. You can only have one at a time.
Okay.
And so the SRF we've been approved. We have to be in design and construction for the water line for the camp and conference center. After that, we have a number that we've been designing and bundling that will go after that's complete, but that's still a year or 2 years. Realistically, you apply for the grant or the loan through SRF after we close out the camp and conference center. It takes them 6-8 months before we even get the affirmative paperwork, and then we have to go through the loan application process. So
Right.
And then you start construction. So you're 2 years to 3 years out before he would see a water service there.
Right.
If we were doing it through the government process. And
you're
so
running out of
that's
time, he said.
that was the early on discussion. Well, if you're willing to wait 3 years, then we'll do it and it won't cost you. The other option is that you and the council, you can use that 60,000. The difference, if you wanted to fund that 60,000, that was one of the options to run that 8, so you have hydrants, and then you're set up for future expansion. That's a small number. It's not part of a big project. It's a smaller number. Then that would be an option to pull out of our capital infrastructure fund to make that recommendation. And then the town bears that piece of the line extension. And again, as other people tie in, then they would have to pay the development fees and the connection to do that. So that's where I'm looking for some recommendation to direction on how we handle this, because this is one instance, but it's going to become another.
That's right.
It
It set
already
precedents.
has.
That's right.
Yeah, it already has. We had a program on South Lake Huntley. DEP told us that it falls within a, what do they call that? Impaired wells. They have a map that they came in and tested wells and said some of these are impaired. They have chemicals in them, and so you qualify for funding, but they will only fund the wells that are impaired. If the house next to it doesn't have an impaired well, they don't fund that piece of it. So it's a hit or miss, and you have to test every well, and they're only going to fund a small portion of the line to get there to serve one house, and then they won't help fund any of the rest of it. It was, in that specific instance, we paid $10,000 to have it designed. We went back to DEP. Originally, they told us, yes, you're going to qualify. Then they came back and said, no, you don't. It's $110,000, $120,000 project. That was a year and a half ago, so it's now probably a $200,000 project. It'll get rolled into the SRF bigger project, but we had to postpone that project. So, but again, this is a kind of a policy decision.
And you're prepared to pay for it, you said? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but my vote would be, let me do it now, and I can have the water in
Right,
three,
yeah.
in 3 months. And Brandon Copper, who you've heard, is a terrific engineering firm, and the site work contractor that I've got lined up is Calusa Underground. They're licensed and so on, a big firm.
So to be clear, what he's offering to pay for is the 39,000, the inch and a half service, or contribute that 40 to the 100. If we were going to run the 8-inch line up to Blackfoot,
I'm with you. He's not running it from Lake June Road.
he'd run an inch and a half from Lake June Road to his property, so he didn't have to wait for all the rest of it.
Okay,
So,
Could I add one more thing?
sure.
There was a comment made earlier that if I did the inch and a half line, that it could impact the flow of my neighbors. According to Brandon, my engineer, when we tap into the 12-inch line on Lake June Road, I doubt that our inch and a half line tapped into 12 is going to have any impact on the adjacent neighbors.
no, that wasn't the discussion. The discussion was, if you put the inch and a half in line, and you got 4 more neighbors that want to tie into your inch and a half, this neighbor, this neighbor, this
Right.
neighbor
Oh, I
that
see.
wants to tie into your inch and a half, you're not going to have any water flow.
Right, that's why we run a 3-inch. And so you can service all the other people.
So, and that would be sixth option, is to run a 3-inch line. We were looking at fire service, fire protection, so if you don't run at least a 6, you're not getting any fire protection.
Yeah, but
So, that's the,
1.5 inch, I mean, that's,
To me, if he's willing to pay for it without our money, I mean, it might not be the right thing to do, but it's the quick fix. He said he's running out of time. All this bureaucracy of getting all this stuff done takes a long time, I understand. But you're saying it's not 40,000, it's 100 and something thousand, what you said?
The inch and a half line is-
40,000 gets an inch and a half line from Lake June Road to his house.
Okay,
So that's the 40,000.
and that's all that's needed to get him water,
That's
correct?
all you get to get him water. If the issue comes in, you're running past several other houses, so if they want to run, now you have another service that's going to run next to it in the road.
Then they need to run an inch and a half from that same line,
Yes.
I would think,
It starts to get
right
to be a
beside
little
his.
bit of a mess.
yeah.
So when you're having 3 or 4 services run in one line next to the road, and what happens when it starts leaking, or you have a problem down the road, or somebody's trying to, it becomes a little
Sure.
bit of a nightmare.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Do we have the $60,000 to chip in towards the 100,000, the total 100,000?
We have money in our capital reserve, so the answer to that is yes. A lot of that money is currently tied up back and forth paying for the other grant projects, but the answer is yes, there is money in that capital account.
Okay. And then if, down the road, if some of us other neighbors are tied into that line, there's an impact fee or whatnot that they pay?
There's a development fee that they have to pay. So there's not a development fee on top of the 60,000, but you do get the development fees currently. Again, that will come up for a recommendation and a change when we go in the summer, that you'll see that come in on some changes on that, how that's written and what those development fees are. But currently they're set up to pay for capacity improvements at the plant, not for line development or recoup of that line. It's something that needs to be added in, so we have a mechanism to fund some of those line extensions that we have people want and need. But that is not historically. Historically, from what I can tell, the only time line extensions were done in the town is when they had a grant come in from the state or federal. So there was not a lot of self-funded line extensions.
Now, if we were to chip in the $60,000 and he chipped in the $40,000 for a six-inch line, we're saying, right?
It's his
What-
pricing's for an 8-inch main, as an 8-inch main. So
What would the timeline be on that compared to him just running an inch and a half line by himself? I mean, is it obviously it's going to be longer maybe, but is it drastically longer or just a little bit longer?
No, that would be, he has his engineer standing next to him, so his engineer would design it, do a DEP permit. County permit doesn't take any time, it's fairly simple. DEP permit is still not a long timeline, so you may delay it by a couple of months. If you want to jump into that discussion.
Hi, I'm Brandon. Yeah, correct. County permitting isn't that big of a bear, but it will have to go through FDEP as well. We have to give ourselves some time, obviously, to get that area surveyed and then develop the plans as well. So I would say you're probably 4 to 6 months out, given our current workload.
So that gives you an idea.
Okay, thank you.
So what it does from a town perspective is it, like I said, it prepares you for a future expansion into that area, if you wanted to do that expansion, and it provides a hydrant to serve that area for fire service. So.
Yes, Ms. Pam. So I was looking at the map.
Pam Fentress. But this property isn't in the town limits,
No, it is
says
not.
C there.
so if it's not in the town limits, and if you're even talking about discussing about using town resources, even if it's utility department's resources to pitch in the other 60,000,
Why does the strap number start with C if it's not in the city?
No, that C is for county, city is
County.
for P,
That's
public.
right.
So
P, yeah.
anyway,
duh.
but it is in the, this is in, we serve here already. All the utility funds, it's an enterprise fund, so they're separate from the town funds. We're not taking any town tax dollars to operate the utility. So that's a clear separation between the two, just from a functional standpoint. And our budget is completely separate from the town general fund, and our reserve funds are completely separate from the town reserve fund. So the capital infrastructure fund that you may hear the town talk about for different projects is, ours is a utility fund, and it's entirely raised through utility fees. So just to be clear on that piece of it.
right, but that 60,000 would come out of,
The utility fund.
correct. And so, this may be a great project, everybody needs to get on central water, but you've got a lot of projects ahead of you, sewer and water. So I don't see how somebody else could come in and jump ahead of those projects, and even if you're talking about going to get other grants, you've got a list this long of projects you need to get done. So, and they're not in the town limits. I don't know.
I thought we were talking about getting a procedure for how you handle.
And looking for a recommendation, if you have one, to town council, because it will be on the town council agenda. So,
I make a motion that we allow the gentleman to install the 1.5-inch line to his and his neighbor's property.
Is there a second? Going once. All right, motion fails for lack of a second. Any other options for him?
You said you were trying to set up a policy or some kind of a procedure for handling these?
this kind of is what leads into that. Yes, we need a firm, we have a policy for a developer. It's very clear. Developers pay for 100%, and that's written in the code. We don't have a policy that addresses these line extensions for individual homeowners that want to get to our service area or our service line. And this just kind of leads in that discussion. The policy will have to come back, obviously, for approval, but this leads into the discussion of developing a policy for individual homeowners and how we address some of these, what I'll call short line extensions, as opposed to the long ones that we are planning a fairly large line extension project it's going to be, that'll be a $4 or $5 million SRF ask when it comes to you and the council. But this board 2 years ago, I think when we were having the discussions about the sewer line expansions, it was brought up about the line extensions for designing water at the same time you had designed wastewater. So that was approved. Those are being done. So everything around Lake Placid, the section along Lake June, everywhere that we designed sewer expansion, we designed water expansion along the same line. So those lines are all in the process of being designed. So this is an add-on. Lake Huntley is an add-on into that process. So that wasn't originally part of the plan, but they're getting added in. Like I said, Lake Huntley, we thought we had a funding source. It fell apart. So, but yes, it will kind of drive the discussion about how we're going to expand to individual homes, not to developments. So that's where it gets to me, a little bit harder for an individual homeowner that wants to have town water service to pay $100,000 to have water service to his house. So.
And I would chime in that as a taxpayer, if I look at my tax bill, I see water and sewer, so the taxes I'm paying is going somewhere, but yet I'm still willing to ante up just to get it done.
And just for clarification, you live in the county, you pay $0 to the town of Lake Placid. $0 to the town of Lake Placid. Your water and utility bill is a water and utility bill if you have one. The county contributes nothing to the regional utility, so nothing you pay in taxes comes to the town of Lake Placid or the utility.
That doesn't seem fair to the town.
It is what it is.
Can the town enter into an interlocal agreement with the county and capture, forget that I'm standing here. The town should be getting some of the taxpayers' money that individuals are paying to the county.
I don't think the county's going to give up. I mean, that's a hypothetical. That would be for town council and county, but I wouldn't bet the county's going to give up any of their tax dollars to the town willingly. So, but anyway, be that as it may, tax dollars are immaterial to what goes on with the utility. So, anyway. It'll be up for discussion. If you don't have a recommendation, that's fine. I said it will be up for discussion at the council. You don't have to have a recommendation. So if you want to make a recommendation, that's fine, but you don't have to make a recommendation to the town council.
We want to make a recommendation? Yeah, my thought for a recommendation would be to allow him to do that. I used to live on that part of Lake June Road, and the water is terrible, as your brother can tell you.
So
Is there a second?
she didn't get a vote. So is it in the
His
form of
motion
a
was,
motion?
if he's going to pay for it, let him do it.
I agree.
Right. With understanding that it might get ripped out one day or something, when go in with the real deal, something like that, I would put that in there. But I'm not the maker of the motion. I can amend it, I guess, but
So
I think it just makes
what
sense.
is the motion? Are you making a
State your
motion?
again?
That we allow him to do that and continue to work out a policy for other issues like this in the future.
Okay, the 1.5-inch line.
No,
Allow-
just for serving individual customers they want, because this could be a 6-inch line. But yes, let him do the 1.5 inches,
Okay.
but the policy would be all-inclusive.
The motion is to allow him to hook up to it at his own expense, the 1.5-inch line, right? And further explore how we can set policy for future things like this.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. And Jack seconded it.
Yes.
Poll the board, please.
Me?
Yes, I said poll the board, please, yes.
Aye.
Jack Comley,
Aye.
Matt Elliott,
Aye.
Pam Brewer,
No.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very
Only
much.
because that they're doing it is, you know, I mean, you'd have how many 1.5-inch lines run down the road? That's not the right way to do things. I'm sorry, it's not. And so therefore, I don't agree with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Were we on utility director report and grant
No,
update, or we do
we're
that?
on grant priority recommendations.
Okay, yes, there we are.
So it's a fairly lengthy write-up. I'll let you, I don't need to review it, but we do have a grant that's going to be a grant application that could be available, is available, should be made a July timeline with DEP. And we need to make recommendations on what the next grant priority would be. So I provided a list, fairly long list, 1 to 11. I will say that the reasons my top 3 are in there, and they should, in my opinion, should be lumped, and that should be the number 1 priority. I'm really looking for 2 and 3. We had to pull, we didn't have enough funding in the $40 million grant to finish closing to build a lift station in Force Main to Tomoka. We also had to pull the upsizing of the force mains out of the Marquardt and Main Street, and then Main Street to the plant, pull that upsizing out of that last contracts that were awarded. And then Lake June Hills, we had tried to apply. We applied last year for a grant for Lake June Hills to close their package plant. They have a little package plant that discharges directly into Lake June, to close that package plant and tie them into our force main and new plant. Lake June Hills is very interested in that. We actually had a conference call with DEP last week on that one. So out of the 11 projects, my recommendation is to at least include those first 3 as the next grant application. That's DEP grant. There's also a federal earmark application that will come in and during the summer. So that's the next piece of the puzzle. And what LPRUAC's recommendation is, do we focus on the town and work on the gravity system that's in town limits? Do we work on the next piece of lakefront properties? That's entirely yours and the council's decision on what you want to see be in the next grant application. So that's up for any questions, discussions, or any kind of recommendation. There's 11 projects there. It's in whatever order you prefer.
Where is the Lake June Hills at?
Where is Lake June Hills?
Physically, I mean,
Physically. So Lake June Hills is
Simpsonville.
the mobile home park. This is the wastewater plant.
okay.
This is Lake June Hills.
Oh, okay.
This is their wastewater plant. This is their wastewater plant.
All right, thank you.
They have a gravity system that flows everything down to here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Lake June Hills, they want to connect, correct?
Lake June Hills Homeowners Association want to connect. They have asked us to try and get funds so they don't have to. They're in the same situation as everybody else is. They will have to upgrade their plant to an advanced wastewater treatment plant. They don't want to spend that money if they don't have to. They're in the permitting process, so they have to renew their permit like we do with Tomoka. We don't have any choice. We'll have to go ahead and renew the permit, but then they have a 5-year timeline where they have to either upgrade their plant or join in with us. They would prefer to join in with us.
And by the way, sometimes I'll ask questions and I know the answer, but I just wanted everybody else to hear the answer.
Yes, we have had a number of meetings with the Lake June Hills homeowners president and vice president on that, and as a board, they have requested to join in with the town on that, which is why we actually applied for, last May, we applied for a DEP grant for Lake June Hills, but we did not receive that grant. I gave you some considerations, and I just wanted to reiterate as you talk, as you think through, because grinder pumps and systems have become, are a hot topic. DEP has started requiring compelling if you accept their grant money, then you have to compel the hookup. In the past, the town has not compelled anybody to hook up to sewer. So that's a difference with a change with DEP on their grant applications. So it's an important consideration when you talk about where it's going and what the next project is that if we're running by with a DEP grant, we will compel everybody to connect to that line.
In what length of time? 6 months, a year?
Say what? Sorry, what'd you say?
In what length of time do they have to hook up? 6 months, a year, right away?
If we're running past the project, they'll connect when we're doing the project. So we would make all of that connection. So if we're funding all or part of that connection, it would be as we're doing the project. So state law says you have a year if it's available. So the lines that we run, the force mains that we run along some of these areas, we're not compelling hookups. But if their septic tank fails, there's a force main out front, then they will have to hook up. DEP says it's now mandated. The state law says within a year.
Okay.
For us, if we're doing the project and we're funding part of it or all of it, then we're going to do it as you're moving forward on the project.
Okay, thank you.
So it'll be quite honestly, depending on the project. I mean, if you apply for the grant in May, you're not constructing anything for another year, basically. So.
You already typed it for us.
So as long as they want it, as long as the people want it.
So I think he's looking for this.
Okay.
Priority septic to sewer projects as follows. One.
So I did have a recommended motion that combined 1, 2, and 3, just because
Yeah.
that's kind of, but then number 4 or 5, that number 4 and 5 projects to me are also important, because this summer, if we apply for the DEP grant with 1, 2, and 3, we got a federal earmark summer, early fall timeline that will be the 4th project. So that's where that next line, like I said, 4 and 5 fall in, or 4, 5, and 6 fall in on what y'all would recommend to town council.
Okay. I move that we accept your recommendation,
Just read that.
that we
Read that.
make we prioritize the septic to sewer projects as follows. Projects 1, 2, and 3 combined into the grant application.
In that order, right?
Yeah, and then except I'm going to leave Placid Lakes out of it.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Jack seconding that. Clear on the motion? Would you like me to restate it? Basically, it's what's printed. The motion's she moves to recommend the town council that we prioritize the septic to sewer project as follows. Projects 1, 2, and 3 combined into the next DEP grant application, and leave out Placid Lakes. Okay? Poll the board, please.
Pam Brewer,
Yes.
Jack Comley,
Yes.
Matt Elliott,
Yes.
Jon Draper,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. First thing, Utilities Director's Report, I'd like to introduce Bert Warner. He will be handling this moving forward, so he started a week ago. You want to just... Bert.
It's going to be an honor working with you. I started last week. Kevin, Leanne, the whole team's been trying to get me up to speed. It's going to take me a little bit, stumble a little bit, but I think we'll be all right. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So just for information purposes, the Florida retirement system requires me to not do any work for the town for 6 months once I retire. So March 1st is my last day for 6 months, and then assuming the town still wants me to help them do project work, I will be back on a part-time basis after that. That will be up to the town's discretion. So I just wanted to, Bert's here, he's got 36 years, or 38 years, something. He's got a long time in the utility business, retired from Michigan, and then last number of years, 6 or 7 years at Longboat, so Key. So he has a lot of experience. I think he'll be a good fit in that, but he's going to have the same issue that Joe had and I had. You have $45 million in grants, and you've got another 2.5 online, plus your next grant application, plus a police department, plus all the other projects, and it's more, you don't have enough staff to handle what you have in projects. So anyway, but that'll cover that. There's a lot of projects that got put on hold when I took over all the grant work. So Bert started working on that while I try and clean up and make sure between Bert, Dennis, and Sadie that the grants that are in process keep moving forward. The grant applications that are going to be due are set up and covered before I go, so we don't have we don't fall out of anything. And so we're doing those write-ups. Just real quick, the water asset management plan is supposed to be done. We approved the wastewater plan last year. This is the water asset management plan. That'll be coming in when rural water is done with that. They'll also come forward with rate recommendations. So there'll be some fairly substantial rate increase recommendations. Just so you know, those are not mandates. They will tell you that they are not mandates. My recommendation would be that you not implement all of them, particularly on the wastewater side, until you have the plan up and running. You see what your costs are. You'll have the camp and conference center. You'll have those revenues coming in, so you'll have a much clearer idea of what your real-time budget is once those are done. Because the wastewater asset management plan is what's based on today, with the 3 wastewater plants running and the repair and maintenance that's required of those plants. So it'll be different with the new plants. So anyway, but they will make that presentation on everything that's required. I haven't seen the draft of the report. I expect it in the next couple of months. Bert will be expecting it in the next couple of months. So we had our wastewater treatment plant construction progress meeting this morning. They're slipping a little bit on their time, just with some changes, and we're going to be potentially slipping a lot. The electrical building, which has all of the controls in it, they sent an email that would not be delivered until sometime December, January of next year. So we knew it was a long time lead time item. We've pushed to get it moved forward. In all of the previous discussions with ICON, they had said it's a 6-month delivery, and now they're saying a year. So that email just came in yesterday, so we'll see where that puts us and what happens with that as we get more information. You'll hear more about that next month. So that is a very large concern of ours. The rest of the project is moving along very well. You saw the pictures of the clarifiers last month. The walls will be going up on the first of the 1-million-gallon carousels, and so that's going to start in this next month. So that'll be another big piece of the puzzle that goes up, and then the piping that goes on. So overall, the project's in pretty good shape, with the big question looming on the control house. So because that will delay the whole project by several months if it doesn't come in until January, which is when it's supposed to be completed. So the water main loan application, the resolution bulk service agreement's going to be before town council. Once those are done, then hopefully we'll be finished with the loan application, everything will be approved, and that project will bid. And it'll be pretty much an 8-month construction project, and then they'll complete that, and that'll complete the water and the wastewater side of the Camp and Conference Center project. So that'll be 100% complete. The only thing we're waiting on for the wastewater side is Duke to install the power lines. Everything else is ready and complete. We expect them, they're trying to get it pushed ahead for us and get that installed in the next couple of weeks instead of 8 to 12. So I'm waiting for an update from Brandon Albritton is the Duke representative that I'm dealing with, and he's trying to get that moved forward. So as soon as that gets permanent power run, then we can start the Camp and Conference Center wastewater side of that and get them up and running. So hopefully that will happen. I'm hoping by the time the end of the month hits, we'll see. The 3 lift stations that were bid right before the first of the year, those should start under construction in the next couple of months, depending on materials, and we have a couple of railroad crossing permits that we have to clear up in a county road permit. But those 3 are, compared to a lot of the other stuff that we've been doing, are fairly simple projects as far as the 3 lift stations and the force main. So less moving parts on those. However, from the paperwork side, they're getting funded by 3 different grants with 3 different grant managers, and that's going to be complicated. So every grant requires different paperwork, and they structure their pay requests differently, and they have different requests. So Sadie, Dennis, and Burnt will have a time keeping up with those three grants, but they should, fortunately, that will complete the $40 million grant along with once the wastewater plant's completed. But those 3 projects, as they finish out, the only thing that will be left is the wastewater treatment plant on that major grant. So the federal earmark, we talked about it a little bit, that's coming down the road fairly quickly. The interlocal agreement's supposed to be, we'll have to start negotiating with the county on the interlocal agreement and how we're going to manage that, and then the other grant application. So that kind of is where that falls. And other than that, it's been a pleasure working with the Utility Commission. I hope to see you again working on projects. But so that's my personal preference as projects. I like building things. I've done it pretty much my whole career, and so that's my true passion on that. So anyway, that's all I have.
Kevin, I have a question.
Yes.
On the 5 items that we just approved to go to the city council, when, well, let's take the first 3 there, like that group. When do you expect them to be, can you give us a timeline on, you said you were going to, the requests would be made in June approximately, is that correct? For the
grant?
Yeah, for the grant.
The next grant last year opened in May.
Okay, so May or June.
And so they give you a window, but it opens in May, and you have May, June, and, depending on, they may open it in June, they may open it in July. They move it depending on what's going on. But that's when the next grant application has to happen.
Okay. And
the recommendations will be on the next council meeting. They don't have to make a decision at the next council meeting. They can push it to March, actually, to make their decisions. But they have to make it March because we have to have time to prepare all the grant materials and the application. So you got to know what you're applying for and the write-ups and get all that ready and prepared. So you need that timeline.
Okay, I guess I didn't make my question clear. After the grant, let's say, is submitted, the grants are submitted, how long before you know, and then how long before you get the money, approximately? What's the...
Usually about 3 months before you know whether you got the grant or not.
Okay.
Unlike the federal earmark, which was almost 6.
Okay.
So legislative appropriations are 8 because you have line item veto with the governor. So you literally wait. You apply in October and you don't know until July 1st. So it depends on the grant and what you're applying for. But the DEP grant specifically, usually about by October, you'll know whether you got the grant or not. It's entirely a reimbursement, and so until you spend money, you don't get any money.
Oh, okay.
For that. So, but to get through their paperwork takes another 4 to 6 before they have everything approved. They say, yes, you're approved. I'll back up. SRF, we got approved in last February for the SRF grant. We did not get any of the paperwork until June to actually start filling out the application.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our grant writer, part of the reason this has taken so long is our grant writer had health issues, didn't do all of that project work that they would normally have done. So we had to pick it up, add it onto ours, and learn. We had never done an SRF application. The grant writer had always done the SRF application. So we had to learn that process, so it's taken us a lot longer to get through the grant SRF application than it would have. The next one's going to be a lot quicker.
Okay, so
So
let's just say ballpark then, we could be talking about next year this time, almost.
next year this time, you'll be awarding a bid.
Okay.
Because the designs are done, so literally you'll be, or at least the first of the year or after, before
okay.
you'll award a design.
And then out of those, like, items 1, 2, and 3, what is the, which one is the longest construction time, and approximately what would it be?
Out of those, it would be the Tomoka lift station and force main.
Okay.
And it's actually, the reason that one's cost so much, it's a force main and a reuse line back. So there's 2 lines that are going in the ground.
Okay.
All the way from Tomoka up to the wastewater plant, and there's a lift station, and it's a fairly large lift station that has to be built. So pumps and panel lead times on those are 6 to 8 months. So once you award the contract, you have the submittal that you approve what they're ordering to make sure it's what you spec'd out. It's 6 to 8 months before they'll have the equipment. So
Okay.
that's part of the reason the lead times on these, it takes a year to build it. The force mains will be done in 3 or 4 months. They'll build them, put them in. The pipe is simple and easy. I say simple and easy, but anyway, it's the equipment that goes in the lift station that takes so long.
Okay, and then did I understand correctly that once you've received a grant, let's say a DEP grant, right? You can't apply for another one until that project is completed?
Now that's SRF, so different grant.
Oh,
SRF grant loans, you're only allowed 1 wastewater open at a time, and you're only allowed 1 water open at a time.
okay.
That's different with the DEP grants. They're both DEP, SRF and DEP, but it's a different animal. Those open every year. They're clean wastewater. You can stack that money, for lack of a better term. So you can apply for multiples of those, which is why we are using 3 grants to build part of this line. We have 2 federal wastewater grants. The $40 million grant, the 2 of the lift stations in Marquardt Main Street get built by a Rural Infrastructure Fund grant from Department of Commerce, a federal wastewater grant, $600,000, and then the remaining amount is out of the $40 million grant. So it depends on the grant,
Okay.
and each one of them has its different requirements. CDBG, Rural Infrastructure Fund, SRF, you're only going to have 1 at a time. So you got to close it out before you can do another one.
Okay, and I think probably the last meeting we had, you said something about the chances of you getting a grant, let's say, even if you completed the project every year, like year after year, you'd more likely be maybe a year in between there when you probably wouldn't get to.
Yeah, the reality is the Department of DEP, that Florida is dealing with when we got the $40 million grant, they had a $400 million influx of federal dollars that came in to increase their $100 million budget. So there was a lot of grant money that flowed in with that. Typical budget for DEP on a year, and it's approved by the legislature, is $100 million or $200 million. So your competition is with everybody else, every other municipality in the state of Florida.
Right.
So you're literally competing against everybody else. So they want to see projects designed and built before they just say, oh, go here, I'm just going to give you additional money. So you can apply. But the reality is, and that's based on a conversation with the department head at DEP, he doesn't approve the grants, but he's part of the committee that approves the grants, because we have not received the last 3 that we applied for. So we had a conversation as to why we weren't, and he said, we're only going to stack so much money. We want you to be under construction before you're going to get more money. We're well under construction on the wastewater plant, so we think we are in a pretty good set point, particularly with the Tomoka plant, because we can't, the Tomoka plant needs to be tied into the main plant, otherwise kind of defeating the purpose. So we think we're in a really good position for this next DEP grant. The federal earmarks are just, I'd say with our new president, the chances of federal earmark are significantly lower or zero than they have been in the past. The legislative earmarks, if you look at what the governor vetoes, a lot of that goes away. Even our legislative earmark never didn't make it for a police department, but even the ones that did, they got vetoed by the governor. So you might make it through the legislature, but then the governor is very particular about his veto ability, line item veto. So our best bet is DEP grants and SRF. So those are the ones that you can usually count on, but you're not going to count on, again, $5 to $10 million, more likely every other year, not every year.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Just one more question then.
Yep.
You talked about a 6-month delay in receiving the, I'll call it the control building or the electronics building for the wastewater treatment plant. What impact do you estimate that will have on the completion date of the plant itself?
if it truly doesn't come in until January, I think it will probably delay, because the plant right now is due to come online February 8th. I think it'll probably be a 3-month delay.
Okay. And
Because there's a lot of, that's a 20 by 40 building that has all of the controls for all of the pumps and the SCADA system for the entire plant. So there is a lot of wiring that has to be done to get that online. So if truly if the building comes in earlier, I don't know why the building would be delayed. You should be able to get the building, and it may be some certain drives or certain pieces of equipment that aren't in the building. Then we're not looking at nearly the delay.
right.
Then it may be, 2 weeks, a month.
No, that's,
But right now,
okay.
I'd say we're looking at, as of today, probably a 3-month delay.
Okay, and the $40 million, that $40 million grant, that has to be spent by when? The end?
So my date that I use is June.
June, okay.
We have to have all of our documentation into DEP, bills paid by September,
Okay.
so that DEP closes it out by December 31st. So to give us a little bit of time to get through that process of getting everything closed out, we need it online June of 2026.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Ms. Pam? 3 minutes, no.
Pam Pinterest. So the Lake Placid Camping Conference Center ended up getting a 6-month extension.
Correct.
Okay. So, and then with the wastewater treatment plant, I thought originally it was a hard date of January 2026 for it to be up and running due to the $40 million DEP grant. That was your hard date. I understand that you're saying the electrical building has been potentially delayed, but I thought that's the whole reason that the town council had special meetings. You had to allocate the couple of $1 million before the end of December. I thought there was like a hard deadline on all these different things.
There is a hard December 31st if you haven't gotten everything closed out with DEP. That is a hard deadline. That money goes away. December 31st, 2026 is the hard deadline for 100% of it, all the paperwork, everything to be completed.
Okay. Originally, but didn't we project, or wasn't it projected January 2026 that the 1 million gallon a day wastewater treatment plant was going to be up and running?
That is the date that just slipped to February 8th, currently February 8th, and it depends on the building. The dates haven't changed. The building, yesterday, we got notification that the control building, electrical control building, may not be here until December or January of 2026. But the date for the completion of the plant has been January of 2026. Since we signed the contracts, we got the bid award, we signed the contracts, and we pushed hard for the very reason we know there will be delays. There's been no delays claimed for any of the hurricane days, any of the rain days, any of this type of delay that's beyond their control that may delay the project by several months. So that's where, but January of 2026 is when the plant was supposed to be online. It's not going to happen. We know February, if we can push it, then we know February 8th is the current, as of today's date. So,
Okay. You know, you can always come back and sit with me in the audience if you miss us, like after your March 1st time.
Anything else from anybody? Okay. Thank you, Kevin, for all your work here. Enjoy your retirement. We appreciate it. That being said, adjourn the meeting. Thank you.